Reverend Shokai is available this evening for individual conversations to discuss anything practice-related. Koan students are welcome to discuss aspects of practice, but not present koans. Please raise your hand if you would like to have an individual conversation with Shokai tonight. Thank you.
Please be seated for this evening's talk. Sit comfortably and face towards our teacher. In a moment, we will recite the Gautam beginning the Sutra on page 8.
Gata on opening the sutra. The Dharma incomparably profound and infinitely subtle is rarely encountered even in millions of ages. Now we see it, hear it, receive and maintain it. May we completely realize the Tathagata's true meaning.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. One down. Let's see how the rest of the talk goes. All right. So last week we were working on case 41, and it was sort of the backup story, or the story that you needed to hear before we got to the case. So now we're going to actually look at the case together. And just to remind you, this is very auspicious because Bodhidharma brought the Lankavatara Sutra with him from India to China. And this was the sutra that his teacher wanted him to bring to China and to bring this Dharma. And this was really the foundational text of Zen. So it's very important for our school. And when Roshi, our Roshi, was given Inka Shomei, James Ford Roshi gave him this book. And what's happening for this Ango and going forward is that Roshi is transmitting this text not only just to all of us here, but also to me as part of the Inka Shomei transmission. So you'll see me sitting where Shugen is when he's giving a talk, rather than up on the platform or just sort of lounging around in the back of the Zendo. Interestingly, people have said that the Zendo feels different with that configuration, and I really bow to that. And I've sort of decided to make it a practice whenever Roshi's giving a talk, that rather than lounging around on the back couch like that, that I will actually be here a little bit more present and a little bit more upright, as probably I should have been all along, but I didn't. So I'm sorry. Um, but, you know, we're human. And that has something to do with the case, actually. So Bodhidharma puts the mind to rest. Bodhidharma, the case, Bodhidharma sat facing the wall. The second patriarch, standing in the snow, cut off his arm and said, "Your disciple's mind is not yet at peace. I beg you, Master, please give it rest." Bodhidharma said, "Bring your mind to me, and I will put it to rest." The patriarch said, "I have searched for the mind, but have never been able to find it." Bodhidharma said, "I have finished putting it to rest for you." Mumon's commentary. The broken-toothed old barbarian came thousands of miles across the sea with an active spirit. It can rightly be said that he raised waves where there was no wind. In later life, he obtained one disciple, but even he was crippled in his six senses. Ha! The fools don't even know 4 characters. Verse. Coming from the west, pointing directly to it. All the trouble comes from the transmission. The one who disturbs the monasteries is originally you. So, in Buddhism, the problem isn't our body that is in pain or having some issues with its throat, or that the body is going to die, or that the body is sick, or that the body has all kinds of difficulties. So that should be a great relief. Our body is our body. Right? The body that we're in, having its various encounters with gravity and blood coursing through it, and not sure where it is in space, trying to establish itself in space. All of that really isn't the problem. The problem is our minds. So here it's in Buddhism, the mind is shin, it's heart-mind. So it's the whole sort of bundle of like emotions, intellectual dualistic thinking, memory, anything to do with cognition, and most importantly, perception. Buddhism says the 4 Noble Truths. Life is suffering, there's a cause, there's an end, and there's a path to that end. And the suffering comes from the mind. So we have to train our minds. It's quite simple and quite direct. Now, in this case, Bodhidharma is facing the wall. So Bodhidharma is working with his mind. And he's been working with his mind for a long time. And he's had some enlightenment experiences. He's had some awakening experiences. He has realized the non-dual Dharma. He's realized the Tathagata Garbha, the body of the Buddha, that he is and everything is. So he's doing, interestingly, there's the mind, because it has that alaya consciousness. We were talking about this today in our meeting with the abbot. Will constantly be throwing up seeds of memory and all kinds of things, karmic seeds of the past, whatever. So we're constantly working with our karma that never stops. It never stops. But how we work with it, how we understand what's happening in our minds, that shifts radically. So that's what we're working on, that shift in perception. Now the second patriarch, standing in the snow, cut off his arm and said, "Your disciple's mind is not yet at peace. I beg you, Master, give it rest." So it has to kind of bother you, right? That you're not happy. It has to actually be a problem that you're looking at directly and not really finding any solutions, despite, all the things you go to sort of numb out, right? You are plagued by the weirdness of your mind and your inability to pacify it, to find peace in your own heart mind. If you're not plagued by that, then do something else, right? But if you are, and you have that kind of sensitivity, then each one of us has to stand before ourselves, mostly actually. And if we are lucky enough, we get to bring that mind of chaos and confusion and despair and just the mind that is sort of operating on what we call the three poisons: greed, pulling it in, gotta get it in, gotta get it in; anger, pushing it out, no, no, no; and ignorance, thinking that we're actually separate and solid. I am who I am. There's a lot wrong with the world, right? And then I am who I am. There's a lot wrong with me and I can't change it. Either way. So in this case, the second patriarch went to very dramatic lengths to come into right relationship with his teacher. Fortunately, in 2024, nobody has to cut off their arm. But you do have to find a way for your heart, mind, to come into relationship with the heart, mind of the teacher. Because through the blessings of the lineage, they've actually been able to untangle some of these karmic knots and obstructions that have kept their mind spinning around like a top, Samsara is actually sometimes defined as like a whirlpool. You're just spinning, 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 and you can't get out, right? So one thing I did want to talk about that I think is really important, and this is really what I think puts a red line between the meditation apps of like, oh, I think I'm 10% happier because I sat, I feel better, right? Or I'm less stressed, I feel better, right? Getting to this true and authentic pacification of the mind is a lifetime's work. If we don't want to kid ourselves, or if we don't want to like be, kind of functional enough, right? If we want something more, if we know there's something more than just being functional enough. And there was a couple of stories about some Zen masters. Rinzai, who started the koan line, when he talked about his practice, he said, I sat in sheer darkness for years. I didn't know what the hell was going on, and it was so scary and so painful. Hakuin said, I sat in an ice cave 10,000 miles thick, feeling so alone and so cold. Right? I myself sat for 10 years and cried every single retreat. These were 7-day retreats. I had to drink a lot of water because I was really getting dehydrated, but I was weeping and weeping, and I couldn't stop crying. I had just tremendous amount of shame that I wasn't able to answer the koan, if you can believe it. And I had a tremendous amount of sadness from the karmic seeds that were in my life. So, cutting off your arm is one way to think about it and to express it. The other way is to just have the courage and the bravery to sit in the midst of your own karmic moment and allow things to settle. Just settle, settle, settle. And it takes as long as it takes. The magnificent thing is that all along, each painful expression and feeling in the mind is not separate from your Buddha nature. And that's what you discover when you're sitting doing this dark night of the soul work on the cushion. It's really interesting because this Lankavatara Sutra is so eloquent in its descriptions of what we're up against, right? So Mahamati said to the Blessed One, why is it that the ignorant are given up to discrimination and the wise are not? So here discrimination is one of the obstructions to awakening. But here's the weird little coda that you have to really at first take on faith and then see directly for yourself, that obstruction is not, that discrimination is not separate from Buddha nature. That obstruction is not separate from Buddha nature. All right, the Blessed One replied, "It is because the ignorant cling to names, signs, and ideas." So when we tell you to see it, acknowledge it, and let it go in your mind, it's because we are saying, don't cling to the names, signs, and ideas that are carousing through your mind, careening through your mind, actually. Because if you cling to that, you're going to keep yourself in the whirlpool. As their minds move along these channels, they feed on multiplicities of objects and fall into the notion of a samsaric ego soul and what belongs to it. Mine, me and mine, right? They make discriminations of good and bad amongst appearances and cling to the agreeable. As they thus cling, there is a reversion to ignorance, and karma born of greed and anger and folly is accumulated. As the accumulation of karma goes on, they become imprisoned in a cocoon of discrimination and are thenceforth unable to free themselves from the round of birth and death. So, how are you going to get yourself out of that cocoon of discrimination? How are you going to get yourself out of that whirlpool of your mind just going round and round and round and round, justifying, not justifying, creating a self, not creating a self, blah, 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 right? False imagination teaches that such things as light and shade, long and short, black and white, are different and are to be discriminated, but they are not independent of each other. Light and dark. They are only different aspects of the same thing. So that is our investigation on the cushion. How is it that all of these dualities of myself, not myself, good, bad, up, down, she hates me, she loves me, how are all of those things of the same source? How are they all the same? This is called the one body of the Buddha. Because when you know they're all the same, they're all Buddha nature, your relationship to up and down, black and white, I'm this, I'm not that, is completely changed. And it's changed because, not because you have this flash of an insight oh, I see that. I'm just using my dualistic mind. But there's actually this, and this is what you can't talk about, right? This is the inexpressible that all the Zen masters are trying to point to. There is this inexpressible font of, as I think it was Teresa of Avila said, all is well, all manner of things is well. So there's a kind of bliss and ecstasy and, at the very least, workability, right? that shows up, it's actually great. I mean, who wouldn't want that, right? Conditions of existence are not of a mutually exclusive character. In essence, things are not two, but one. In essence, things are not two, but one. One showing up is me, Chinyu, Rojo, woman that I don't know, but I think I like a lot. So on and so on. So on and so on. That's great. That really worked out. Okay. But even that, right? That is like a perfect expression of what I'm talking about, right? There's this sort of like, it's just happening, right? And you can feel the joy of that, and you can feel the freedom of that, right? That's what I'm talking about. I could even end the talk right now. Maybe I should. Let me check. Well, I want to do a little more. Let's just finish these. Even nirvana and samsara's world of life and death are aspects of the same thing. For there is no nirvana except where is samsara, and no samsara except where is nirvana. All duality is falsely imagined. All duality is falsely imagined. Where is that place? Where is that perception? What is the experience of your life when you know in your bones that all duality is falsely imagined? And finally, Mahamati, you and all bodhisattvas should discipline yourselves in the realization and patient acceptance of the truths of emptiness, unbornness, no self-nature, and the non-duality of all things. This teaching is found in all the sutras of the Buddhas and is presented to meet the varied dispositions of all beings. This is interesting. But it is not the truth itself. What? It is not the truth itself. The words that are describing this one reality is not the truth itself. Why is that? Because words are inherently dualistic, subject-object, right? These teachings are only a finger pointing towards noble wisdom. And that's what we're practicing, is this noble wisdom that is the ground of the words. Okay? You have to directly experience for yourself the ground of the words. Where do they come from? They are like a mirage with its springs of water, which the deer take to be real and chased after. So with the teachings in all of the sutras, they are intended for consideration and guidance of the discriminating minds of all people, but they are not the truth itself. I read it in the Bible, it must be true. No, that is not Zen's way. Zen's way is verify it in your own experience directly. This can only be self-realized within one's deepest consciousness. So, one's deepest consciousness. How are you going to get there? Well, I think you're on your way if you're sitting on this cushion tonight and getting some guidance and being together with each other, doing it together. That's so vital, right? We're all polishing each other. We're all helping each other to awaken. I've searched for my mind, but have never been able to find it. So this mind is illusory, right? It doesn't actually exist in reality. It comes up, comes down, up, down, up, down, up, down. I have searched for my mind, but have never been able to find it. You can't reach in and like pull your mind out and present it. Here is my mind. And then Bodhidharma says, I have finished putting it to rest for you. Because you realize for yourself that whatever this narration story is that's going on, it's conditioned, but most importantly, you realize for yourself that the story, no matter how harrowing or how beautiful, is not separate from that Buddha nature that's so alive and dances with so on and so on and so on, right? So the broken-toothed old barbarian came thousands of miles across the sea with an active spirit. So they call Bodhidharma the broken-toothed barbarian because apparently 2 of his priests tried to poison him. And yeah, who knew? Don't you guys get any ideas? No. Anyway, he was sort of hip to it. And he just like put his tooth to the cup, his front teeth to the cup, and they all like broke off because they were poisoned. So that's why they call him the broken-toothed barbarian. It can rightly be said that he raised waves where there was no wind. So this is pointing to Buddha nature pervades everywhere, right? There's actually no need for any teachings or anything. And yet there's this profound need for teachings and coming together so that we can realize our Buddha nature. It just, for some weird reason, it's just not super obvious. I don't know why. I mean, other than delusive thoughts and twisted karma. You know, they say that that's the adventitious dust that covers it over. Totally workable. Not a problem. You can do it. In later life, he obtained one disciple, so that was Weka, who cut his arm off. But even he was crippled in his 6 senses. So this is actually a compliment, crippled in his 6 senses, that, you know, this is the know, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind of the Heart Sutra. So he realized the emptiness of eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. He realized the absolute, the boundless. And then it says, the fools don't even know 4 characters. So apparently some Zen master once was asked, what is Zen? And he said something like the fisherman in the boat. And this fisherman in the boat was like totally illiterate and could barely speak. And the idea is that, it's not the idea, the reality is that when we are directly embodying the absolute, there's nothing to talk about. There's no A, B, C, or D. Vast emptiness, nothing holy. That was Bodhidharma's retort to the emperor. But bodhisattvas don't stay there. They don't just say, oh, great, this is great. I'm just going to bask in this. No, they bring that into the world for the sake of saving all beings. They bring that in and use skillful means and creativity and all of the ingredients, we say, of their life to help relieve the suffering of others. Okay, coming from the West, pointing directly to it, that's a famous line from Bodhidharma. All the trouble comes from the transmission. The one who disturbs the monasteries is originally you. So you're the one that brought the teachings, and here we are in 2024 in Toledo, still having all the winds of the Dharma flowing through the temple because you took that long journey from India to China. Thank you very much.
Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our service for tonight. I'm sure there are some announcements. One which is that this Saturday there is a teaching retreat, I guess, on the Lankavatara. It starts at 7 for folks who want to come early and do meditation and then breakfast, and then the retreat actually starts at 9. Am I getting that right? And I think you need to sign up for this if you're interested in coming. Are there other announcements?
I just wanted to add to that these teaching retreat days count as training days for Shoken. So, bonus, in addition to enlightenment.
Are there any other announcements?
And so on and so on.
Thank you all for your practice. Please restore the Zendo.